Namaste, welcome to this Ask Me Anything section, this new thing that we're doing here on YouTube, where you can ask a question directly here. And once a month like this, I'll take some time to go through the questions and comments that have arisen during that month. So if you have a question or something that you want to ask, you can post it for December as a comment underneath this video here. And then at the end of December, well, maybe into the beginning of January, I'm actually going to try take some time off over Christmas, which I'm not always, it's a learning curve. So at the end of December or shortly after, I'll take some time to record these answers for December. So we have some questions that were sent in for November here. So I'll get started with those. And the first one is from Ethereal Dawn. And the question is, hi, Helen, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. My question is about taking the right action. Recently, life has called for me to stand up for myself in lots of different situations. However, when doing so, I am coming from an emotional person, so it seems. So it becomes difficult and uncomfortable for myself and the others involved. The trouble is I can't wait until I'm constantly coming from a place of stillness, as these issues often have to be dealt with there and then. Sometimes afterwards, I doubt whether I should have taken action at all, thinking that surely it can't be the right action when coming from ego. Yet there seemed to be a sense of empowerment and self-love that comes from standing up for myself. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you. So firstly, it's never just coming from our ego. It's never coming from our sense of separation only. Anytime that we get an urge to stand up for ourselves in some way, and that sense, as you said, of self-empowerment and self-love that comes, then that is the self, the noumenon, the awareness, beginning to shine through as what's right for you also in that. So think of it more as a kind of a work in progress, in that an evolving thing, that more and more your responses and your actions are coming from a place of stillness. And as that, it will be more and more a case of what happens, what actions and words emerge from you will be more and more in line with what's good for everyone involved. So what's good for everyone involved when you take some action isn't necessarily going to feel good for everyone involved, but there will be a sense of knowing that that's the right thing that could have happened, the best thing that could have happened. So for example, if you're in a relationship where one person is, you have a friend or something like that who is taking advantage of you, it isn't sort of fairly weighted, then you taking the right action for both of you might result in that friendship dissolving, or it might result in it evolving to a higher place where it's much more equally balanced, sort of standing up for yourself in that way. But that's not necessarily going to feel good to the person who is treating you unfairly in that situation. So you can ask in a situation like this, what's the highest thing that can happen here? What's the highest manifestation that's trying to occur here? And if it makes me feel bad and the other person feel good, then it is in separation. There has to be some higher solution here where you get to honor your own self and also do what's right for that other person, because it's not necessarily serving their highest good to continue, to allow them to continue to treat you this way in this particular example. And severing that, not allowing that to continue, however the friendship goes from there, is going to be a higher. You're going to experience more love and respect coming at you because you've stood up for your own self. And just noticing our mind tends to do the either or of it. I'm either coming from self or ego here. Most likely, you're already coming from the self, because this urge for self-love and empowerment is arising. That is a pure sign for me, a good sign for me, that this urge to love your own self also, as you, the self, infinite self, is appearing here, your mind and body, basically. We tend to put other people first on the pathway, and in life in general, when we're on the pathway, and we tend to neglect our own self in that. Usually the last person we look after is our own self. So, on particular body mind. So if you are already feeling that urge, there's a very high probability that you're coming from the self anyway, probably not from ego. Why it might feel bad is because you're trying to take more loving actions towards yourself, but maybe still have some residual unworthiness, some sense that you don't deserve to be treated that way, or you don't deserve to get what you want, something like that. So just checking that out there and see what you think. Usually by the time you ask this kind of thing, it's already too late to be only coming from ego. You've already transcended that. You'd have to be very unconscious and not anywhere near wanting satsang, an evolution like that, to be only coming from ego. So I hope that sets your mind at rest. Okay, so Simone says, I really appreciate Helen coming out of her inner circle to connect with her YouTube viewers. I have found it frustrating that when she makes these profound videos addressing the ultimate truth, but basically fails to engage whatsoever with people that have genuine interest in the message she has. So thank you, Helen, for finally stepping up. Well, thank you for your thanks. But I don't really feel that that is 100% fair, because I don't really have an inner circle. I have a few close friends, and I can count them all on one hand, that help me. I would call friends, people that help with this, uploading videos and all that kind of stuff, putting the titles on, hosting the sanghas, doing the announcements. There's all kinds of help coming now to do things that I've got no idea how to do. And basically my whole existence is engaging with people that have genuine interest in the message, because we give 4 free satsangs a month unless I'm traveling on retreat. I have, there's loads of free stuff here on YouTube as well. You've always had the ability to send a question in, which I can read out in live in satsang anonymously, or ask on any of those live satsangs. There's a whole host of free stuff on the website. I've even read aloud most of my books, I think 8 of them. Some of them in their entirety, and they're on YouTube as well under their own playlist. So, there are some resources for if you can't afford to get the books. Most of it is on there anyway. So, I spend most of my time alone. I don't have an inner circle. I'm quite happy here in my little house, and I have my 2 cats here, and my youngest daughter is still at home with me. But most of the time I'm on my own, unless I'm doing some satsang or some class or something. And don't forget that there is no, being a spiritual teacher is pretty much the only profession, the vocation way to spend your life, for which there is no rule book, guidebook, training, certification, all of that. There's no how-to guide. So teachers end up figuring it out as they go along. And if they don't always get it 100% spot on, then, just know that we're always doing our best. And it is a huge responsibility also. So I appreciate your comments, but, maybe I'm not like you think I am in that way. I don't have an inner circle. Quite a private person, really. Quite a shy person, actually, believe it or not. So Simone also asks a question for Helen. As a self-realized being, do you believe it is possible to gain advancement towards one's own self-realization from being in your presence with an open heart, as it would with Ramana Maharshi, for example? Many thanks. So it benefits anyone to spend any time with anyone who has woken up to the truth and is living as that, whether they're teaching or not. You know, many beings just wake up and don't ever actually teach like this. It takes a particular calling to do that. And especially with an open heart, yes, it benefits them. And it will speed up your awakening to do so. But what being in that presence is doesn't necessarily have to mean sitting in the same room as, or in the same physical location. If you can, great. If you can't, please don't believe that you're going to be diminished or slowed down or something like that if you can't actually be with that particular teacher in person. It's more about the open heart, open mind, willingness to see things differently than we've seen in the rest of our life. The presence of the teacher is not a human being. This is the vehicle the teaching is using to express a message. And therefore, the teacher is not limited to a particular human being. The teacher is the presence, the consciousness, the noumenon, the self. And so you can get a profound spiritual teaching even from an inanimate object if you are open to receive that. You can get darshan, blessing, from anything. And it doesn't have to be a transmission, doesn't have to come from one human being to another, although those are the ones we hear about most often, of course, so we all remember. So yes, benefit, but not necessary, rather, because I tortured myself with that idea for a very long time. I only spent 2 times with an actual teacher live in person. And those 2 times happened after I had overcome this idea that I had to be with this teacher physically or else I wouldn't be able to wake up. And I held back my own awakening for quite some time because of that particular belief. So hopefully you can release that. And if you need to be physically with a teacher, life will arrange it somehow. If you're at a point where you really could use that physical presence, then life will arrange it somehow. It happened to me. From no way, no how, I found myself in this wonderful environment with Ajishanti. All the resources I needed came from somewhere. Everything just fell into place. Once I'd pushed through this idea that I had to be there or else, you know, a teacher is very literally all around you all the time, right inside your own heart too, never any distance from you. Okay. Nishi says, I want God to forgive me for all my sins and give me a better life next time. How is this possible? Nishi, I would like to say to you that God doesn't even see anything that needs to be forgiven. God as you're calling it here, or the self, the truest, most permanent nature about us, isn't seeing a person with committed certain acts or done certain things or said certain things that God feels is a mistake. It may help to feel or to kind of visualize a very loving presence in which everything is utterly instantaneously forgiven. So before you have even said the wrong thing to someone out of anger, for example, it's already forgiven inside, because saying that wrong thing out of anger is coming from the mistaken belief that you are separate to that being. And this is kind of lovingly held inside this gentle, infinite presence, God, as we're calling it here. God doesn't see anything that needs correcting about us. It is only in our own thoughts that we feel that we need to be forgiven for things we've done or said, and all of that. What if it is only our ideas about our own imperfection that is actually perpetuating this, the things that we feel we need forgiving for? And the way that others are treating us too in that. So can you accept, or can you be willing to come to a place where you accept that the whole, it's very noble to want to be forgiven, but that there might not even be anything seen by God, that God doesn't see you as a flawed human being. God would see only itself. Krishna would see only himself when he looks at you. He wouldn't see anything other than this beautiful divine sculpture that is you as a human being. The self, God, looking like a human being is not actually a human being. And all of our struggles on this planet that we have today, the way human beings treat each other, is coming from this wrong perception of what we actually are. From the place of the God presence, it's impossible to treat anyone badly or do anything that would harm anyone else or your own self, because it's just so obvious that all there ever is, was, and could be is this presence. So yes, absolutely, God can forgive you, but also it's already happened. And can you accept it? And why can't you accept it if you can't? Can we come to understand that there is a place of utter perfection right now, which is our truest state? And perfection doesn't mean correcting all my flaws and becoming perfect. It's seeing all my perceived flaws as misconceptions about myself, symptoms of my actions, words, and speech that are less than thoughts, less than I would like them to be, are symptoms, reflections of my own idea that I am less than I need to be. Somehow, this original sin where I fell from grace is true, because it never was. It touches my heart deeply here, because there is absolutely nothing that you need to be forgiven for. And your work is going to have to be to work on your willingness to accept that that is already true, already true. Doesn't mean we might not want to have a better choice of actions next time. If I say something that's unloving to someone out of a wrong idea about myself, I can wish for that to be better. But I can understand that it's only coming from my flawed perception of what I actually am, that I'm not actually flawed. My perception of myself is untrue, is limited. I'm not actually seeing myself or anyone clearly in their beautiful, pristine state that they already are. So have a ponder on that and have a think. It's a very popular spiritual myth that there is this all-powerful, loving, forgiving presence that is God. And it's kind of true, yes, but God doesn't see anything that needs forgiving about you. Never could. Absolutely only sees itself appearing as you. And that's hugely different there. Okay. Marcella says, "Dear Helen, thank you for the clarity of your teachings. I am with my parents 2 days every month. When I am alone with myself, I live with some serenity and can experience some peace in meditation. When I am with them, I experience some very discomforting feelings. It seems like the reality with them is stronger than the reality I experience with myself. With them seems like there is no field, no peace. It is very challenging. Every time I find myself in an emotive state of feeling not safe or feeling there is not some emotive space for me to be authentic, it is painful. When I come back alone with myself, I can see from some distance, I recognize that what is happening has not so much importance, and in some way I can calm down. What I would like is my peace could affect them, or to experience some connection while I am with them. Can you give some advice? I apologize for my English. I have not studied it formally. With love." I think your English is amazing, absolutely amazing. So it's really common, isn't it, that we can begin to experience some peace, some clarity inside our own, meditation when we're sitting alone. And then, just like it was for me, I go out into my relationships, into my world, and family especially have seem to be very good teachers in showing us where we could allow a deeper connection, as you're noticing here. So when we are feeling disturbed for any reason at all, it's never for the reason our mind says. It's not being with my parents or my siblings or my children or my boss that's making me feel this way. It's my thoughts that I'm still believing about the situation that's making me feel this way. So what thoughts are you believing while you're with your parents that are diminishing your peace and your connection, and therefore your ability to kind of cover them with this peace and this presence also? You've mentioned here some very discomforting feelings. I find myself in an emotive state of feeling not safe, or that there's not some space for me to be authentic. So here's for me the key, the idea that's being believed. When I'm with my parents, I can't be authentic, or it's not safe for me to be authentic when I'm with my parents, is the idea that's being held onto here, and therefore you're experiencing it. So I'd ask you to question through contemplation. You can look at the playlist on YouTube here on my channel, Core Teachings. There's a contemplation example video. First, we talk through how to do it, and then we go through a live guided example. And the question we use in that, is it really true I can't find peace? So you can substitute your question, is it really true it's not safe to be me, to be authentic in this, with my parents? And just staying with that question until you stop experiencing that, until deeper connection opens up even when you're with them. And you'll find that their behavior towards you begins to change as well, because they are also you. And you find yourself just being more natural, and just also letting go of what authentic means. What does authentic mean to you? For me, authentic started as I'll be more spiritual, I'll be more liberated or something, but authentic became whatever I'm being in this moment. So if I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm feeling irritated, I'm irritated. If I just want to be on my own, I want to be on my own. All of those came. Authenticity is as I am right now in my mind and body, honoring that, loving that. So finding what the belief is here, as you pointed to, safety, authenticity. Had this too. It's not safe to be me. It's also my current life lesson here in this lifetime. It's not safe to be me. So it's showing up in various relationships for all of us. So, okay. Hope that helps. Thomas says, hi, Helen. Thank you for being light to this world. I wonder if you are aware of your previous incarnations. Hilson Thomas from Norway. So yes, a good fair number of them. Mainly the ones I can remember from where I haven't quite managed to fulfill my desire on each body mind vehicle until liberation is driven by unconscious desires that we haven't been able to fulfill in the previous body mind vehicle. So lots of body mind vehicles, one being one individual wave on the ocean, and as the ocean, lots of bodies coming and going in that. And several lifetimes I've been working on, hopefully I'm mastering now this one in this lifetime here, this body mind, of being safe to be myself. Experienced lifetimes where it wasn't safe to be a spiritual teacher. Luckily, they don't burn teachers at the stake anymore, or psychics or anything like that, which is good news. So already a safer thing. So the ones that are most prominent to me are where I've not quite managed to master that particular lesson. I remember quite a great deal of them, really. Most of them are largely uneventful and boring. But this, the last one before this, where I had this wisdom, but I was afraid to kind of express it because it was going against, and still is going against, the grain of what most of humanity thinks, of course. I should imagine every teacher has this fear of authenticity inside them to some degree in this area, as we were just talking about with Marcella. So usually you'll remember the ones that you need to still get a lesson from, where you didn't quite fulfill desire to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel accepted, appreciated, to feel free, unlimited, whatever it is that remains unresolved, that drives the coalescence of another body-mind vehicle into that. Okay, Judith says, no question, Helen, just gratitude from my deepest heart. Thank you. Thank you, Judith. Appreciate that. Pero says, Raiders of the Lost Ark movie always fascinated me, especially the scenes with the Ark. Is the Lost Ark and the content of it of any importance today? And it was as it was back then. What is your view on the great miracle events with the prophet Moses? Did they really so happen as written in the Bible? Is the me, ego, the devil? I follow your great channel for almost 1 year now. These questions are coming from the me standpoint of view. Thankfully, you, self-realized, offer the recognition that this ego me is false and that it covers the truth about who we really are. Thank you, Helen. Well, I'd like to, my kind of viewpoint really is that probably some of it happened. You know, if you look at the Bible stories, any great kind of parables that have been passed down from the original enlightened being that did those or spoke those events have been written down and translated and transcribed over and over again, probably by beings that weren't fully awakened. So some amount of embellishment, egoic interpretation of them doesn't necessarily mean wrong, but maybe just kind of missing out a little bit more each time on the core truth of that thing. And I could go on for a whole hour on this, but I think more important than the actual ark is the metaphor for what it stands for. It is also the Holy Grail. If you look at any heroic story, there's usually one weapon that can destroy evil. There's this fabled sword, Excalibur. If you pick anything at all, there's always one. There's any great sort of epic story like that, whether it's in the Bible or anywhere. There's always one thing that when the hero gets it or learns it or sees it or something like that, even Kung Fu Panda, right, when he sees his own reflection, there's nothing there in the sacred scroll except his own reflection, that he is already enough. There's this one thing that they can get or recognize, which is what the ark symbolizes. The most important thing, the ark symbolizes what is the most important thing to me, rather than the physical. I don't really know if it ever actually, occurred. I know that some pretty amazing miracles have happened in my own life. I don't have an Ark of the Covenant or anything like that, but miracles tend to be the common state of your life to some extent once you have recognized the truth, because there's no limiting beliefs slowing down and impeding the manifestation. So more than the actual events as described, looking at what they, the great teachers like Christ used to teach in parables for their message of the story. The parable contains a message. What's the ark signifying for you right now? And what does Excalibur signify for you right now in that? What's the most important thing for you? And yet, to a certain extent, the kind of lower frequencies, the devil, Christ was tempted by the devil in the desert. And aren't we all tempted by the devil when we sit? We might not go out to the desert for 40 days, but we are tempted kind of all the time by these lower frequency thoughts that are, working against our, anytime anyone wants to wake up to truth, to find the truth of their being and realize their self, there's always two energies, and one is working towards that. I'm going to go to Satsang, I'm going to watch this Satsang, I'm going to sit and meditate. And then there's also this other force, isn't there, that's kind of this energy, which we can call resistance. It's just energy. Again, the devil is a metaphor for all that which would hold us back as we become conscious of it. There's these other thoughts. You don't really need to meditate today. You don't have time to meditate today. This isn't getting us anywhere. You know, don't go to the gym today. You went yesterday. You don't need to go today. You could do much more important stuff. And on, just very, very subtle, but usually most people are at the effect of that energy and therefore not actually waking up. We're not becoming conscious of who we really are, most of humanity. So metaphorically, yes, I'd say ego is the devil is a representation of all that would hold us back if we listen to it. So Christ kind of went to test himself against that. You know, what of these forces are there that are affecting him? And we all go through that. We're all in the desert. And of course, the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and said, right, that's it. Metaphorically, of course, paraphrasing, I'm sitting here until I've transcended all these temptations, where my attention goes away from seeing what I really am. And we're all doing that all the time. It's just not in such a formal way, is it? You know, we can't all go sit in the desert. Anyway, I've got off the topic there, but hope that helps. These kind of questions that you're asking are coming from the self. They're not coming from ego. Ego wouldn't really be so interested in truth in that way, you know. Just don't underestimate yourself. Zane says, thank you so much. Thank you, Zane. Appreciate that. Monica says, my question is evolution of consciousness a part of the story in the dream? Thank you. Yes and no, Monica. It's more, all of the manifestation in a way is a dream, because there really is only the infinite self. But that infinite self is also on a journey to understand itself through ever more complex forms, finally arriving as a human being inside the dream, where it can finally come to the recognition of what it really is, that it's dreaming itself to be a finite, separate, limited being in time and space, affected by all these other factors. And so yes and no in that way. Okay. Monica also says, how about the idea, follow your joy, never do what you don't want to do, and many responsibilities that are not fun at all? Well, you know, that would be, you know, we have all heard the saying, was it Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors where there's only walls. And that's very true. But, you know, if I just said, right, I'm not taking my daughter to school this morning, I'm not going to do the food shopping because I really can't be bothered. You know, it wouldn't take very long before things began to break down. So doing what you have to do right now, fulfilling those responsibilities best you can. And also in the time that you have remaining, following what gives you joy. And then as you do that, the things that don't give you joy will begin to change. You'll begin to enjoy even those. Because in the awakened state condition, really self-realized, as a self-realized being, everything you do is sacred. Everything you do is an act of worship to the divine self, even doing the food shopping, cooking a meal. What this food really is abundantly clear, actually. What this next person in front of you is abundantly clear. Here's Krishna right here in front of you. This food that you're preparing is also Krishna. All of this is Christ's body. Can't get away from it, you know, so that's a different way. And then you begin to feel, so take the time you can to follow whatever gives you joy and bliss now. Do what you have to do though. You know, you've got to also, if you've got to go to work, whatever it is that you've got to do. And then what you don't enjoy will begin to change as you follow what your passion and your joy is already. Okay, Sister Moon 108 says, hello, Helen, grateful question. Among my various current practices, the most effective seems to be a simple letting go of thought and clinging to thought. The immediate result is a relaxed sort of bliss, no suffering, a big plus, oh yeah. The nearby woods, a mecca of mental silence, supports this practice wonderfully. However, this practice is only available in the waking state. Too bad, because it would dissolve the dream state's usual chaotic, neurotic unpleasantness. The question, will the letting go practice by itself develop into wisdom, or is it just candy? Because currently it gives a quick release from suffering into bliss, but no wisdom. Well, I suggest a two-pronged approach here, looking at what that place of letting go is, enjoying it, but also being curious about it. Why aren't I suffering here? What is this actually about? Can this reveal itself more? What actually is it? It's nice, of course we want to enjoy it. Of course we do. But also being curious about it. What really is this actually? And do I have to only experience it right now in the woods? Or can I experience it at my desk when I'm working? When I'm having an argument with the kids, when I'm late for work? Can I experience it when I'm doing my weekly food shopping or whatever it is? Do I have to only experience it in a certain place and time? And all of that. So wisdom will come anyway, but for me, it's kind of slower. So I really tried to actively engage with that. What is this? And what is the wisdom I would want? What is it I'm calling wisdom? And can I facilitate that coming through? What can I let go of? What thoughts can I let go of that'll allow this wisdom to come through? And one of the major things I had to let go of was this idea that I was any different than the Buddha or Christ or any of the great beings whose wisdom I was revering. I had whole pictures of them everywhere, you know, in my bedroom and everything. And, you know, there's the Buddha right there. And I had to really let go of this idea that there was any difference, because then the same wisdom could flow through the body-mind vehicle as they obviously had access to. Same wisdom will flow through an empty vessel. Not empty as in I've got rid of all my thoughts, but I'm not holding on to any sense that there's any difference between me and these great beings. Dream state. What usually is happening in our dream state is some things that we're not currently aware of or not currently willing to look at in the waking state. So you can have the dream at nighttime and then look at it in the daytime. What were the major emotions I felt in this dream? What were the main themes? For me, when I really looked at my dreams at nighttime and brought them into the waking state, it was mainly fear, guilt, some of the other things that I can't really, I think jealousy, which is kind of a form of anger, really. And as I began to do contemplative work on the emotions, because you don't have to be actually feeling the emotion. Most of my dreams at nighttime were about being chased by some horrible monster and eventually being killed each and every time. Until one time, the very last time, I wasn't killed, and I kind of woke up before I got killed, the usual. The last time I had that dream, I actually got up from where I was hiding and ran towards the monster. But in between the second to last and the last time I had that dream, I recognized that the monster I was fearing was the self. It was God. It was the noumenon, the awareness. And that I was seeing it from ego's perspective. There's this big, bad, scary power coming to get me and kill me. And ego's fear of being annihilated was showing up in this dream. So the actual turning around and going towards the monster was so deep, was a metaphoric representation of some deep surrender that was going on within my own life, of these ideas that the ego had to be stomped on like a bug or something, some crazy idea that I was going to lose my individuality, something like that. And it was all nonsense. But whatever you don't want to look at will have to show up in the dream state, in the unconscious. You can't work on it in the dream state, but you can look at it afterwards. What are the major themes and emotions? What's the story behind the emotion? Okay. Christina says, Dear Helen, is this move to 5D real, or am I making it up by focusing on it? Thank you so much. I don't really go in for all these 5D, 4D, all that stuff. I don't really understand it all, to be honest. I know that at this time there is a global awakening that is gathering speed, if that's kind of what you mean. More and more people are becoming conscious because of things like the internet. It's very different in this generation. And because we're on a precipice of where we have to now wake up as a species. If you mean by 5D, having to entertain higher frequencies, higher vibrations of thoughts, words, and actions, then yes, there is a movement towards that. But it's only by our own volition. It's never forced upon us because there's nobody else to force it upon us. You know, everyone is free to subscribe to their own level of consciousness. Most beings don't realize they're choosing that unconsciously, of course. I don't know if that helps there, but you know, you can always write back in again. Christina also says, Dear Helen, we get what we are. Can I get to a point where I feel a fulfilling, loving relationship with my husband again? He doesn't love the new awakened me, it seems. Thanks. I deeply appreciate you. So if you are experiencing in a relationship where somebody is treating you, doesn't like you, or isn't appreciating how you are right now, then that is generally a reflection of your own lack of self-acceptance of your own self. So what don't you like about you? Where are you judging you? And where are you still diminishing yourself, criticizing yourself? Where are you still treating yourself in a way that you would never say? Where are you saying something to yourself internally that you would never say to Krishna or Buddha, Christ? And just looking at those, and why are you doing that to yourself? If you have seen, and of course I'm not blaming, I did it myself. It was the hardest thing for me to recognize. When we don't like our own selves, the universe has no choice but to agree with us. And I had to really, there had lots of criticism, especially as a teacher, coming at me. And I had to really look at, where am I doing that to myself still? And do I still want to choose that? You know, if you've been with your husband for a while, then obviously there's a deep bond there between you. He may be a little unsettled by any changes he's seeing in you. But as he just begins to see that you're still just you also, you don't lose your individuality. What he fell in love with, who he fell in love with is still there. You're just realizing there's a whole great big ocean behind the wave. There's not just the wave there in that. So I hope that helps you to kind of come to a deeper understanding, looking at what's going on inside your own self, because it's always reflected out there. If someone's not accepting you, appreciating you, what can you do to love and appreciate yourself more? I don't mean striving towards this goal of this image we have of what you should look like as an awakened being. I mean, the awakened state would be accepting right now how your mind and body is, and not seeing its flaws or imperfection. Yes, there might be things you'd like to continue evolving and refining, let's say, but not from a place of imperfect to perfect. So we get what we are, but have you allowed that vision of that recognition of what you actually are, the formless self, the essence of love, to pervade down through this body mind also? And then it will stop having to be shown to you from the outside in. When it's coming from the, however I am right now is however I'm supposed to be. And I can also enjoy the continuing evolution of the mind and body, because that doesn't stop. One of the greatest gifts realization gave me is the ability to actually like myself, and not just constantly measuring myself up against some picture I have in my head of who I think I'm supposed to be. And this is an invitation for you, isn't it? Yes, you might love yourself. That's not necessarily the same as liking yourself. Can you fall back in like with yourself too? What happens when you become your own best friend? What happens when you become your own biggest fan? It's not egotistical. It is the self loving itself. If we love the self, the noumenon, the awareness, we must also come to love our body and mind as they are right now, because they are a reflection of what you actually are. They are already the self. They're made out of emptiness, the body and mind, out of pure love. And your whole experience will change with everyone in your life when you really kind of take this just one more step into it. So whatever he's rejecting about you is showing you where you're still rejecting your own self. We could all love ourselves more clearly, deeply, couldn't we? All of us. And that love for me had to evolve into like. Do I actually like myself? Am I more willing to notice what's going right than what's going wrong? Am I speaking to myself in ways that I would speak to anyone else in? Or am I talking to myself in ways that I would never say to anyone else? Just a couple of things there to ponder. Okay, I hope I've got all the questions there, but I think I've got them all. If not, let me just quickly check. There we go. Yep. So I hope I've had a great fun answering these. If you have questions for December, feel free to put them under this video and I'll get to them at some point towards the end of the month. I hope you all have a wonderful and restful holiday if you can. And just a quick note, Christmas is a wonderful time for most of us. For some of us, it's quite a challenging and tough time. And if that's the case for you, I want you to know that I'm with you. I'm there. If you just reach out with your heart, you won't ever be alone. So thank you. Namaste.